No, I'm already live. Just need to.
Oh, you're live now?
We probably should have had you bring out your laptop to figure out if it was going to, so you could hear the sound. Suppose you could do it on your phone, huh?
Yeah.
I wonder if you can look it on your phone without it being like too.
It'll echo.
Yeah, without it echoing.
It will echo.
Probably not. Probably don't do that.
Okay. Welcome to live chat. Remember that.
Yeah, it's not set up for it. Hang on, it's up screen too, but it's all right. I was gonna put it to where the camera also looks at the two camera angles. That would have been pretty cool too.
Oh, like side by side?
No, like one here and then maybe one over here.
How would
one
you
up-
switch from them?
Huh?
How would you switch from them?
You don't. You just have them both up.
So they'd be side by side?
Oh, like on the screen?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a lot of Rudy.
That's a whole lot of room. Gotta decide if I want to wear gloves. Sometimes wearing
When
gloves.
you're
is
live,
good.
so you have to say,
Sometimes.
"What's up, YouTube? It's your boy Rudy."
Hey YouTube, what's up? It's your boy Rudy. Coming at you with another video. This is our live stream. It's a live stream, right?
Yeah.
I wanted to do this live stream because I wanted to thank all of my subscribers, everybody helping me get to 500. It's amazing. I really humbled by it because in the past like 48 hours, it's been crazy. The channel's just gotten so many new subscribers. It's unreal. I thought that my goal of obtaining 500 subscribers is going to go into next year for sure, right? Into like, January, February. I don't know. But what I do know is that the new subscribers seem to have really come from the videos that I've been putting on about this bike and the head tube angles. And I think that that's really cool. So somebody in the comments asked, how do I get it from 65 and a half to from 64 and a half to 65. And I kind of explained it to him, how you flip the chip in the rear and you flip the chip in the rear, and that basically just discerns if the bike's in a half degree setting or a full degree setting. But today, I think what we're going to do is I'm going to actually take the headset and put the other angle set in here to the plus 64 flat. And I've been riding that for about the past 3 rides. Anyways, I need to get to 65.5 and 65. And the way you do that is you have to swap out the middle headset cup to the plus and minus headset cup and have your plus headset cup facing forward. But the other thing that I wanted to visit about while we're on this live stream is the biggest reason that I was asking for everybody to help get me to 500 subscribers was so that I can get a new bike, because my wife, the great, wonderful, one and only sponsor that I have, said that I needed to get to 500 subscribers before I could get a new bike. And that's great. Like it was awesome to set a goal, and here we are. And now I have no money for a new bike, but I do have 2 other bikes that I can take and trade or sell up so that I can get a new bike. I decided that I'm going to take my Bronson, my Santa Cruz Bronson. It's a 2019. It's a V3 model, CC X01 carbon reserve wheels. It's a really nice bike. And go ahead and put that up on chopping block. So if you're interested, let me know. down in the comments and we can work something out, because that bike's for sale. And also I'm going to sell my Norco Range. That's basically custom built. It's a really nice bike too. So hoping to get a pretty penny for both of those bikes and take that money and then get a new bike so that I can review it, because it seems like the thing that works really well on my channel is me reviewing bikes, and I just want to keep that going. So with that being said, you know, I need you guys to continue to like, share, and comment. Share being the biggest thing, so that I can get the channel out there, so I can get more subscribers, because I need to get to 1,000 subscribers now, so that I can get monetized and start trying to work the angle of trying to have YouTube help me make some money and recoup some of the expense for
Your sponsor.
my sponsors, so it's not coming out of her pocket. So I guess we'll just get started on this. I'll show you guys what I do to switch out the head tube angle on the Stump Jumper Evo. And the first thing I do is I take this 3mm, or is it 3 or 2? I think it's 3mm Allen key, and take off the grip. This is actually, oh, and I did wash my bike. Normally, I don't wash my bike every time I do this. What I'll do is I'll take some kind of cleaner and I'll like clean around the headset really good, because I don't want to wash the whole bike. That way I don't get any dirt and grime into the channels where the bearings and the cups sit. Actually, the first thing you should do is take off this front wheel. So take this front wheel off. Get this out of the way. Then take your grip off. And then what you're going to want to do is take your front brake off. But in order for me to take my front brake off, I just switch these around too. I got to take off my dropper post lever here. Take off that dropper post lever, and then take off your front brake. So the reason I'm taking this off is because what I'm going to do is, when I take off the stem and the handlebars, of course your fork is just going to want to drop and fall out of place. So by taking my front brake off, that's the only thing that's stopping it from just dangling there. This way I can kind of set it off to the side and not have to worry about it just dangling there by the brake line. So whenever I do this, it'll just be the fork, and then everything will be out of the way. This way I can work on the bike without the fork just dangling there. So I'm loosening up my stem bolts, nice and loose. And then the headset bolt right here on top will be last. I'm bracing the fork. If you guys hear that snorting, that's Moose. Moose is our French bulldog. He's a lot of fun. My wife's sitting behind the computer to let me know if somebody decides if they want to ask me a question, because I will be more than happy to answer any questions. So I'm taking the stem bolt off. Everything's nice and loose. Should just come wiggle out here. Done this a few times. And this way my handlebars, now they're nice and light, so they can sit there and hang. But as you can see, I have my fork in hand, bike still in there, and everything's nice and neat. So right or wrong, this is how I do it. So I've only ridden this bike 3 times since, no, I take that back. I've ridden this bike about 6 times since the last time I re-greased the bottom headset cup, or the bottom bearing cup. So normally what you'd want to do is take your bearing out of there, clean that up real good, and then re-grease everything, but I'm only going to do the top. So basically do the top and don't worry about the bottom since I just did it. Normally, if I would have ridden this bike for like a month or two, then it makes sense to go ahead and clean and re-grease everything in the bottom, but I'm not going to. Right or wrong, I haven't had any problems with it. It doesn't make any noise. But my cranks do. My cranks make a ton of noise. I really do need to get those apart. Anyways, take out your bearing. Look, there's just so much. There's still really good grease on there because it's only been ridden a handful of times. Anyways, we are going to clean
He's so loud.
this grease, Moose. It's because I'm standing up and he thinks he needs to be doing something too.
Yeah.
So we have our bearing, getting it nice and cleaned off, all the old grease. And then you're gonna wanna dig your cup out of there. And sometimes you just wanna rock this back and forth and then it'll just let us pop off. And I just clean this up really good too. That way whenever I put it away, it's nice and clean. So whenever I pull it back out to go to a different headset or a different head tube angle, it's clean and I have to re-clean it. So just cleaning off the old grease. Then once you get that done, you set that off to the side. And then you're gonna want to clean out the race here where the cups sit, so that you can keep yourself from any kind of creaking noise. And I always kind of like to check and make sure there aren't any cracks or anything like that. Not that you have to worry about that with Specialized. But anyways, nice thing to do. Pro tip, keep plenty of towels handy while you do this kind of stuff. So the next step that I do, I don't think you have to do it, but I use carbon fiber grease, and I put that on this headset cup race area. That way, whenever I put the new cup in there, since it's a carbon fiber frame, this is just going to help keep that cup in place and not moving around. And I've done this since I've owned the bike. I haven't, there's never been any kind of scoring or scarring or scratching after I take the cup off, because the cup that I'm putting in, of course, is aluminum. And yes, it does have this little rubber seal around it. And I only do this to the back side, not where the bearing's going, but just to where the cup meets the cup race in the frame. And we are putting that +1. So just kind of get it set up, line up in there, set it down. And then I kind of clean the mess from me wiping it around the rim with my hand so that I don't get any extra in the headset cup. And then I'll just give a good swipe around inside the headset cup to make sure that there's no carbon fiber grease in the cup, because that's something you don't want. And then, easy enough, there's going to take some regular assembly grease and put a nice smear of assembly grease around inside the cup. And I put a pretty good amount to make sure I get all the way around. Right or wrong, this is the way that I do it. It's been working. I don't have any headset creaking or noise or anything like that. So take it for what it is. It's the way that I do it. And then the bearing. So we're going to replace the bearing. It's already cleaned off, wiped clean. And if you guys haven't noticed, in between me using greases, I am cleaning off my hands really good. So I'm going to, again, smear grease on this bearing. I'm going to get it nice and greased up and lubed. And then I'll set that right back in place on top. Making sure that that sits nice and flush with everything. And then I'll wipe just around the edges off to try to keep everything nice and clean and not so greasy looking. And then there's another race set that goes inside, so whenever you put your the shaft of your fork back through, and then you set your stem and everything back in place, this is what your stem bolt is going to push down and kind of keep that everything locked in place. Moose, can you calm down, please? Come here.
Go get it. Go get him. Go get him.
This is Moose.
He's a moose boy.
Moose doesn't know what the camera is. It's right there. Say hi. Say hi.
I'll be quiet.
Moose is a shop dog sometimes. Sometimes he'll come out here and he'll just hang out and he'll be a good boy and he'll sleep on his bed and just chill.
USB device not recognized. Why does it say it's not? Did you turn it off?
No, but it is off.
Is it not charged?
It's plugged in, so it should be continuously charging.
Oh, yeah. And this is charged. Excuse me. Welcome to live chat. Still says GoPro webcam on here.
The GoPro overheated.
Oh shoot, I'm being plugged in. You need to get me that.
Yes, but did I have any audience?
You had two people join at different times. One stayed for quite a while, but popped off after like 9 or 10 minutes. And I've been staying on here so I can see what it looks like on my phone. And we have someone else joining now too. We're up. We're back.
All right, well. Switch over, I think the other one overheated, so. That off a little bit. How's that look? 3D's in or not really?
Looks good because you're in front of camera.
Ah. Thank you, that's an awesome wifey thing to say. All right, back to it here. So we're gonna grease up the race. Sorry about the delay. Not sure exactly what happened there. If it was the camera overheating, it did feel a little warm, so Luckily, I had my backup GoPro set up for just in case, because just in case. All right, so we got that in place. We are in +1, and really we're just going in reverse, putting everything back together. And put a little ring of grease across the top of the race here. And then we're ready for our fork to go back. Right up here. Another pro tip is if you can, like I have right here, right now, is a little table close by that you can keep your little bits and pieces in so that they're not too far away whenever you're ready to put everything back together. Put my spacers back on. Oh, that goes last. Almost forgot about the handlebars. Handlebars go back on next, and then my spacers. That spacers. Put this spacer back.
Never stump jumps that way.
Definitely not going to jump stumps without handlebars. And whenever I tighten the stem back on, I do use a torque wrench. What I'll do for right now is I'll just get it nice and snug, like pretty snug, making sure that there's no gaps or anything. I'm gonna re-wipe everything off just because now everything's nice and tight, so it always squishes out a little bit of grease. That's normal. And I try to get around the race, the bottom of the fork as well. And then what I'll do is I'll set you're only supposed to go to about, if I can change this with clothes on. There we go. You're only supposed to go to about 2 Newton meters to set this. I go to 3. So I'm going to back this off a little bit. And then I'm just going to re-snug it down. Oh, that's 4. Re-snug it down. There we go. Just before it clicks, because this is a 4 Newton meter torque wrench. And if you guys have never seen one of these, Park Tool, what is it? ATD 1.2. They're great to have. It goes from 4 Newton meters to 6, and anything to do up here in your cockpit area, it's like perfect for. And then I am going to snug down the stem bolts, but I'm not going to like tighten them all the way down because I want to be able to, once I have my wheel back on and everything kind of set back up, I do want to be able to move them a little bit so that I can get my my stem and my steering wheel and my fork, everything centered. So that's back on. Where would you get the brake lever on first that I just repositioned, and then back on with your dropper clamp if you have one. Handlebar grip. Get that somewhat of a position. I'm not going to line up everything for you guys I mean, you kind of get the point, I hope. The next thing would be to put your front wheel on, set back on the ground, grab the front brake, wiggle your neck, or grab your front brake, wiggle the bike back and forth, just making sure that the fork is not moving and the headset cups are in place. But and then you would tighten down your stem bolts wherever they were at. But for the purpose of this video, I'm going to show you guys how to flip the chip in the rear. So right now, the bike is +1 in the front, which means it's in 65.0 because the flip chip is in the low position. So for intents and purposes of this video, I'm going to flip the chip in the back here to the high position, which is going to put the bike in the 65.5, and that's as steep of a head tube angle that this bike can go. But of course, like I mentioned in my other videos, it also lifts the bottom bracket up and shortens the chainstay length by 4-ish millimeters. So let's do that real quick, because I don't think that takes very long either. The other purpose of this video, of course, was to talk about like what bike, now that I have like the subscribers that my sponsor asked me to get, now that I have those, oh man, you know what I forgot to do? Forgot to do pro tip number 1. Whenever it comes to taking off this rear wheel, especially with Shimano stuff, get it all the way down to your lowest gear. It just makes it way easier. It just makes it way easier to take off this back wheel and put it back on. So don't forget to do that. Anyway, so what bike is going to be my next bike, right? I don't know, because it's really going to be determined by how much money I get for selling my other 2 bikes. That's really going to be the big difference, or what makes the big difference. And what's on my radar is the Kona Process X, the new Santa Cruz Nomad 6 that's set up mullet, and it has a glove box, sick bike. The Rocky Mountain Altitude, because it's got like so many geometry changes. Like, if you can't tell, I'm kind of into geometry changes. I think when it comes to geometry changes, whenever you have a bike that you can do that, especially if you're new to mountain biking, like switching it up and feeling the difference will really help you determine like what style or how you like to ride the bike. If you've only ever, purchased one bike and it doesn't have any settings, and that's one thing, but most modern mountain bikes have at least 2 different settings on how you can set up the bike. And if you're not adjusting those or playing with those, then and you're new to mountain biking, you might not know that you like one better than the other, or not, or trying to learn in what circumstances one head tube angle might be better than the next. So I think that's kind of why I like doing this, like switching the head tube angles and playing and messing around with bikes. Same thing with suspension. If you're not messing with those dials, if you don't already know what those dials do, the best thing you can do as a beginner mountain biker is like mess with those dials a little bit. That way you can kind of feel and determine the way that you like to ride it, because on mountain bikes and suspension, you can be really, like, some people like it just really plush, right? Like really soft, just eats up all the bumps, makes the trail like super dumbed down because of just how soft and how comfortable the suspension is. Other people like the suspension more firm. That way, whenever you're going over the bumps and you're compressing into the rollers, or you're doing jumps, you get a little bit more pop and the bike feels a little bit more lively and a little bit more playful, you might be somebody that likes it more on the firm side. Me, myself, I really do try to find that middle ground where it just feels good no matter what, because of how I ride and all the different trails that I ride and all the different places that I go. But if I had to pick a side, it would definitely be more on the firm side. I think I can handle it a little bit more, like my hands and my arms and everything. I don't know if this is because of how much I've ridden, and how I like the bike to feel a little bit more playful. So I definitely side more on the firm side. Anyway, sorry, rambling on. So with these flip chips, this is really easy to do. This is really easy to do as well. What are we at here? 5 to get these off. So you just spin these off, and it's kind of like a seashell, like it's clamped on both sides. So on the back side or the inside here of the chainstay, this side is more like the bolt, like you screw it into, right? And then this is more like the screw right here on this side. And how you determine the orientation is, if you look here on the side, it's got like a little dot, and that's where you put your hex key in to adjust it. That's how you determine if you're going to go high or if you're going to go low. And there's a little picture just shows you which way to have this position on. Now, I've found it really the best way to do this, to flip the chip, is to go ahead and take both of these off first. That way, the rear chainstay and the rear seat stay are a little bit more maneuverable. But I'm also going to give you guys a pro tip here on how to, whenever you get these put back in. So once you have these both out, you can see that the chainstay kind of moves way easier and way better. Let's see if I can turn that towards you guys a little bit better. It kind of moves a little bit easier and better, but you don't want to pull this all the way out, because there are two spacers that basically pinch the bearing in place and that ride in between. And you can do this with the dirty bike. It's not a huge deal, but you definitely want to, like, I don't know, take some kind of spray, clean, wipe and dry everything up over here, because you definitely don't want to get a bunch of like dirt and grime in between there. Not that's going to get to your bearings, but the only thing that it's going to be rubbing against is the carbon of the frame. So it's going to score and scar it. So keep that in mind. So to prepare these bolts, what you really want to do is because there's old Loctite or thread lock, whatever you guys call it. Everybody calls it something different. You want to get that old stuff off. So, and also there's a little bit of grease on the shaft. There should be a little bit of grease on the shaft of it as well. So you're going to want to clean the threads, and you're going to want to clean the shaft off, the old grease. And then what I like to do is put a little bit more grease after you've cleaned everything off on the shaft first. So a little bit of grease, roll it around. You're just basically preparing this to go back in. And the biggest thing is, because where the shaft goes in, it is going into a bearing. So a little bit of grease is good. And then take your blue Loctite. This is important. Take your blue Loctite. You just want to put a dot on the end of the threads. That way, whenever you go to thread the bolt back in, when you go to thread the screw back into the bolt, it catches the threads right away. So what I'm going to do now is, since my bolt is prepared, I'm going to go ahead and put it through the front side. And then I'm going to grab my bolt side. And I don't normally wear gloves, so hopefully this doesn't slip out of my hands when I'm putting it back in. We're going to go to the high position. So the chainstay, you might have to do a little bit of wiggle and jiggle, but you're going to want to put the dot of the eye, or the part of the the screw head, you're going to want to have that facing forward, not backwards, forward, so you can be in the high side. I have that in there, and since I have that in there, I'm going to, oh, also the back of the bolt, if you didn't already know, or if you can't see it, has to be in the same orientation. It just won't, it simply won't fit right unless you do anyway. So I'm just going to carefully start the threads, and then once the threads get started, I kind of push it into place. There we go. And then just get everything nice and snug. Again, the reason that I'm just saying that you want to put this nice and snug is because you're going to go back with your torque wrench, which is really important whenever, especially if you have a carbon frame. I mean, it's really important to use the correct torque spec anyways, but especially whenever you're working, dealing with carbon frames. So just going to prepare this other screw real quick. Clean that off. Try to clean some of that old thread lock off of there. And what I do is I basically just take my fingernail and I try to get in the groove and I just spin it to get those threads nice and clean. And also it kind of cleans the shaft of the bolt. So I don't know if you guys can see this very well, but there's a thread part of the bolt and then there's a shaft part of the bolt. And all you want to do is get a little bit of grease on that shaft side.
There's a technical issue down there.
Moose is fine. Oh. Are you trying to lay down again?
Yeah.
There you go, boy. So you just want to get that nice and greased, that shaft part nice and greased. If you get a little bit on the threads, it's not a big deal. You just don't want to get it on the end of the threads where you're going to put your Loctite. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the bolt and I'm going to put it right through there on the nut. And then I'm going to put my little bit of grease or thread lock on there, just a little drip. And then again, I have my bolt that goes on the back side. And make sure I get it in the right orientation. Just kind of wiggle and jiggle a little bit. Snap that into place. Grab my tool, number 5 hex, and carefully thread this on and make sure that it's in the same orientation. Like I said, not a huge deal because it just, you'll notice it won't sit flush. It won't be pretty. It won't sit flush with the bike where it's supposed to go if you have it in the wrong way. And that also, if you accidentally do like start to get it to where the orientations are backwards on one side, you'll know it just doesn't fit good. And whenever you go to tighten everything down, it's like you'll feel it like trying to force itself. So that's a good way of knowing that you did it wrong and you need to like recheck your orientation. Easiest thing is just to make sure that the orientation on both of the bolts are in the same direction. And I've, ever since my very first real mountain bike, no, I take it back. My second real mountain bike, I had a Santa Cruz Chameleon hardtail that was aluminum. And then the next bike that I had was my Bronson, that was carbon. Ever since I got it, the very first thing I did, knowing that I like to work on my own stuff, and I am no bike mechanic, if you can't tell, but the very first purchase I made after purchasing that bike was, as far as tools go, was a torque wrench. Save you guys some time if you didn't already know. It is 10 Newton meters for these back bolts. So I'm just going to torque these into place. Click, click. That's all you need there. Click, click. 10 Newton meters. Now, another thing is if you're going to do this, you really want to like, I would try to give it a good 24 hours just so that you are sure that the thread lock locks it in place, because the last thing you want is one of these rear bolts to like start moving out. I haven't had that happen to me, but I've always been afraid of that happening. So therefore, I usually wait a good 24 hours before riding the bike. Um, After changing these rear dropouts. So that's it. We're done as far as that goes. Um, the what you would do next is just simply put your tire back on and reset everything. I hope that's somewhat educational and somebody gets a kick out of this and uses the information. I really like doing stuff like this, and I think that's why I like this bike so much, is because there's so much that you can do with it, and it's so versatile in the way that you can change things up and make this bike do whatever you want it to do and ride how you want it to ride. And especially as a I'm not a pro mountain biker, but as I feel like I'm really in tune with the way that I want my bike to feel, or I know what I want out of the bike or how I want it to perform. And I think that I got there a lot faster by flipping the chips and messing with my suspension and riding a bunch of different trails and trying to do the harder stuff, you know. I think that just helps progress you faster if you're willing to put in a little bit of time and effort. So the next video that I think I want to do whenever it comes to like messing with the geometry is show you guys how to change out the rear linkage so that it'll go back to 29er. But I tell you what, guys, I am really digging the mullet setup, the 27.5 in the rear and the 29er in the front. This bike really cruises with it. It really does. So I mean, that's it. I mean, if you guys have any questions or comments, if you guys have a bike in mind that, you know, is around the $600 to $7,500 price range, let me know in the comments. But I think I'm gonna go. I'm really leaning towards I think it's the S build of the Santa Cruz Nomad, the version 6 model with the glove box and the mullet. I took that bike out for a little spin in the parking lot, and I cannot believe how well that bike pedals. It's crazy. It's crazy. For being 170 bike, mullet, just pedaling around the parking lot and going up a little steep climb, it pedals really good. So I think that might be my next bike. That's really what I'm interested in, or something like it. Something that's got from 155-ish, from 160 mils of travel to 180 millimeters of travel in the rear, you know, to 170, 180 in the front, like a big enduro bike. It's got to be a big enduro bike / park bike. It's got to be a do everything. It's got to be a little bit easier to pedal, or what you guys think might be a little bit easier to pedal than my Norco. The Norco is a great bike, but man, it's not a trail bike for sure. Like it's just to get you up so you can get down. If you live in a flatter area, that is not the bike for you. You definitely need to be living in the mountains or something with some elevation. So when you suffer the climb, it's worth it to go back down. I don't know what else to say. Is there anything else I should go over?
Nothing else to really go over. One of the things that I got from someone we know who jumped in is she suggested an off-topic live stream sometime.
Ooh,
so
off-topic live stream.
Just so people can get to know you a little bit more.
Oh, yeah. That's a good idea. That's a really good idea. If you guys think that's a really good idea, like down below, comment. That's it, guys. That's all I really have to say is thank you so much to all of my subscribers. Thank you for helping me build this channel. Help me get to 1,000 by comment and sharing the video, getting the channel out there more so we can get monetized, and so Daddy can start making a little bit of money from the YouTube thing. And I can't tell you guys how excited I am for where I'm at and from where I've been, because the past like 48 hours have been absolutely nuts with subscriptions, like absolutely nuts. So again, thank you guys. Until then, peace out. Go ride your bike.
Cut.